Hello, everyone, and welcome to another webinar session from CybExer Technologies. This time telling you all about the benefits and outcomes of Army Cyber Spartan 23 cybersecurity exercise organized by the British Army. To walk you through behind the scenes of this activity, I'm joined by the planner of Army Cyber Spartan 23, Daz Preuss. It is important to note that this exercise brought together 320 participants and 15 industry partners from 6 different nations. But before we get into our discussion, I'd like to remind everyone in the audience that in case you have any questions, you can type them in the chat and we will make sure to address them at the end of the session. But now, without further ado, let's get into our conversation. So, Daz, please give us the introduction of the Army Cyber Spartan 23. The floor is yours.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Daz Preuss, as Ucha said. I spent 27 years as a public sector servant, and my last task was to deliver as the lead planner Army Cyber Spartan 23. Now, Army Cyber Spartan is a very large-scale live-fire cyber training exercise. Its main objective is to upskill defensive cyber operations, or basically best practice defense. And that's basically the overall objective. So the key thing about Cyber Spartan is we had to make sure that it's actually what's the purpose of it, what are the objectives, what do we do with it, and that takes me on to why we do it. If it's okay, Ucha. So what we had was we're a firm believer in continuous learning, continuous development. So you learn something, then you need to solidify it, validate it, and make sure you're good. So as a very large scale organization, we had to make sure that we can actually validate the people, not just say you're good at doing something, because there's many very, very good cyber learning opportunities out there, lots of them for free. Things like Hack the Box, Over the Wire, etc. Then you start to move into things that will help you learn at your own pace, things such as the Mercer Labs, but it's also a very good platform. But when we start talking about how do you add the skills into the context of your everyday job, there's different pressures, there's different things that you need. Team structure, business impact, the analysis, etc. So that's where Cyber Spartan used the CybExer platform. And the key thing was we had to make sure that the objectives of the exercise, the training objectives, align with the business strategy and not just commercial generic. So that's where the high fidelity of the Army Cyber Spartan platform came in. So one of the key objectives, it's not all about success, because success is different for everybody else. But the key thing is the baseline understanding of the capability of your organization. Are you relevant? Are you behind the curve? Are you ahead of the curve? Where can you then place your investment? Where can you possibly develop as an organization a bit further? So it was key when we set out all these objectives and we said, right, we need to make sure we're doing a good thing. Well, what is good? Is it based on best practice, such as we use the NIST NICE framework or the KSATs and the cybersecurity framework? But we also added our own objectives on top of that that are more localized to the business, the things you can't measure unless you're in this sort of environment. Things like eustress, which is how do the team members perform under pressure? How do they interconnect? What is the impact? Do we make the right call? And how far will we push the boundaries before we fail? Are we risk adverse? Are we risk positive? Who knows? And this all leans into what we can deliver with Army Cyber Spartan that you can't in any other environment.
This is very interesting. Yeah, thank you very much for sharing all about the objectives of the exercise. But now I'm very curious to hear for you as the planner and being in the head of this activity. What were the main challenges that came with organizing this 5-day-long live fire cybersecurity exercise?
The hardest part is very large in scale. It's more a program of works rather than a project. So getting the stakeholders from the user community, top down, bottom up, to all understand their part and how it all works. Now, there's no point in just investing in a product, whether it be CybExer Cyber Range, Hack the Box, or anything else. You need to know why. What does good look like? What is the end goal? What are the objectives? But when you understand that, The only way I can explain it is a bit like building a house. You take the platform being the foundation or the cyber range itself, then you take all the skill sets, skills that maybe I don't have. You get the plumber, the plasterer, the bricklayer, and they're very good at what they do, but they need a bit of guidance. And the guidance comes from the architect. And the role of the architect is the lead planner. You need to understand the vision of the organization and make sure everything aligns towards it. So the challenge is when you take a brand new organization that don't necessarily know all the working parts, there's quite a lot of encouragement that you need to influence, help, and shape. The best thing about that is that's where CybExer excel with their consultancy services, where if you don't have the skills, they have the lot of experience in previous projects, and they can give you the guidance and the direction to help you understand what you're trying to achieve.
Absolutely, yeah, and yeah, that's very. I think that's very notable, challenge when it comes to planning the exercise on its own. But what about the challenges throughout those 5 days? Like, what are the things that might come up in a way that it might even not be planned or yeah
So,
throughout the course of exercise?
so when we designed the exercise in partnership with CybExer, it's very customer led,
Yeah,
supplier supported. And it's a bit like going to a restaurant where you place the order and CybExer cook the food. You need to know what you want. You need to be able to place the order in the first place. However, if you don't quite know what you're doing, then CybExer will be able to get the right information out of you. And what that often turns into is a bit like a full menu. You end up with the weekly mission plan, as in
yeah,
what does the main event list look like? What are optional tasks? What's a key task? What are the key measures of success, the key performance indicators, and what the exceptional indicators for if we doing too well at the exercise, what else can we add on the fly dynamically? How can we assess things? But also, whilst all this exercise is taking place, CybEx are taking all the scoring metrics, the reaction times, the understanding logs, and that's been analysed by our academics behind the scenes as well. That's an optional
sure.
thing that we use. So often through the week, we will have our flow of what we think is going to go like, and then at the end of each day, we'll be able to work as a team, talk to all the stakeholders, all the team leaders, and be able to revisit or reanalyze how we may adjust on the fly and add or remove certain content or objectives.
Absolutely, yeah, that sounds actually very interesting. But so before you spoke about like setting the objectives in the planning phase and then challenges. So considering those challenges, I'm just curious to know how do these set objectives change over the course of time? Is it something that is like set in the beginning and you have to follow it, or based on different challenges it might be affected?
So with Army Cyber Spartan 23 being a series, it happens every year. We have a different target audience. Some people are veterans keep coming back for more and more. As top-up training, some are brand new people. It's key for us as our organisation to make sure it's welcoming for everybody at every level. To that end, we have to make sure that the objectives are suitable and scalable across the ability level. So you may be able to turn up to the event, do something, and you need to be able to walk away and go, I've understood the knowledge, now I've got the skills, now I've got the abilities, now I can achieve the task. So it depends where you fit. You have to make sure that all the objectives are being able to be mapped across different levels of ability, and that's one of the key tasks for us. But we'll always make sure that there's kind of a gold, silver, bronze standard for every objective that we're trying to achieve. And as I said, Cyber Spartan is not about pass-fail validation. It's more baselining what are our abilities, where are our strengths, and by using the CybExer ISA tool, we're able to analyze the team did very well. The team placed in a certain place on the scoreboard, but individually, that person was stronger. That person needs a bit more assistance in this way, and that's how we can then post ACS revisit all these logs and reset the range if we need to, and relearn, review, and develop going forward.
Absolutely, yeah. That sounds. Yeah, thanks again for sharing those insights. But now I'm interested to know more about the exact sort of like a role division between different parties that are involved in planning this whole this type of exercise. So typically, what is the input that vendor gives, and what is the input that provider brings throughout the whole activity, including like planning and execution?
So in a perfect world, um, every organization, certainly a large-scale organization, will have all these abilities in-house, and they could do it all themselves. And in reality, nobody does. We need support. So what we have are multiple teams, and I'll go through them in a second, different color teams for different roles. From our organization, the key thing is that we have one person as the lead customer for that function, which is almost the liaison to make sure where the customer stops and the supplier starts, that we understand the customer requirement, the objective, and that the supplier, being CybExer, can adjust their solution in support of what we're trying to achieve. It's a sliding scale. Some teams are stronger from the client side, some teams are less strong and need more supply input. But the key thing is there's a white team, and the white team are agnostic. They're there to make sure for us the objectives are set, and they know what a good should look like, so that by the time the exercise ends, they should be able to measure the exercise as was it successful. They've got all the metrics, the learning objectives, and the feedback, so they can say, have we set out to achieve what we wanted, and did we achieve it? If we did, great. What could we do next? If we didn't, where do we need to work on? Where do we need to focus? And that's also where kind of the umpire, the referees come from. So in the heat of the battle, where you might get the attackers, defenders, and there may be some objectives that are ambiguous, or you need a bit of guidance, or maybe you need to do some sort of reporting, because within your business, your organization, you should be able to identify and report things properly. The white team will set these objectives in a very high level, and that's the validation part. Within that, you then have the green team. The green team is what I was mainly. That's the engineering team. They take care of the data center or the technical environment. They're impartial in the sense of they don't care who wins this event, they care that the event was run well. In the same way, if you build a house, you don't care what the house was used for, you care that it's built very well and is usable by everybody and everybody enjoys the experience. So that's more understanding the abstraction layers, the infrastructure's code, the VMware backend, the networking, the segmentation, and the design. So what does the technical environment look like? If you were to visualize it in a metaverse, what would you see? Is it a mirror copy of your organization in work? Is it completely random? Is it domains and workstations? Is it satellites? Is it SCADA? Who knows? But that's what the green team design and build. But they build that not based on what they think is good, they build it based on what the white team set as objectives, and this is how the green team can best support them objectives and make sure everything's there, fit for purpose. Then we have the yellow team. The yellow team, for me, although I'm not yellow, is the key, is the glue to all of this. That's the scenario writing. The scenario writing and user simulation. So if you go on an exercise, a competition, there needs to be a reason. Why are you doing it? Are you doing it because it's fun? Are you doing it because you're preparing because this task is going to happen? Maybe a company merger. How will it happen? We want to de-risk our environment. There's a reason you're doing it. So the yellow team set the scene. They also, for the sake of Cyber Spartan, they will say, you're deploying to this fictitious NATO country, and that is your task. Protect this. Here's your priorities. They will also support you as the user sim. So there's some things that a real person will call you up and say, this has happened to my computer. Here's the symptoms. What do you think? What will you do? And they help with all this. They help support the entire exercise, including accidentally clicking bad links that will do things and trigger some of the events that are going to be measured once again against the objectives by the white team. So that is very, very important for us, because otherwise you're just spending money and you don't quite know why you're there or what you're doing. So that takes on to the last two main teams. The red team, OPFOR, the hackers, attackers, or the opposition force. So for the sake of Army Cyber Spartan, they don't go rogue. They're not free reign red teams attacking, showing off their skills. They're there to support you. Because Army Cyber Spartan is about measuring the maturity assessment of the blue team, the participants, we heavily automate the red team effect so it happens to everybody at the same time. Everybody gets attacked, so therefore we can work out who are the best responders, because it's almost academically sterile. CybExer help provide the red team attack campaign, what effects we're going to use, what supports the scenario, what's realistic. We don't want Austin Powers sharks with lasers. What we need is something that looks a bit more realistic to us. Now, intentionally, to keep the classification down, we don't talk about our actual issues in work. We talk about things that are more common knowledge but similar. Maybe Log4j might be on there, maybe some IPR theft, maybe it's something else. That'll all be stitched in, and the red team will know how to go and attack it. The green team will, to a certain extent, help enable things to maybe pre-planned accounts. That's because of the timeline of the exercise. But the red team will respond in line with the yellow team, the scenario writers, to make sure the objectives by the white team followed in line with the timeline you set. So then that takes you on to the defenders, or the blue team, the participants for Cyber Spartan. And as you said, we had multiple people around the world, lots and lots of teams, typically a team of 10. So where we can use other products, as mentioned earlier, Hack the Box, Over the Wire, and most labs, etc. This is the first time that people have ever been actually live attacked. It's not instant response, what has happened, let's analyze it. This is you're being attacked whilst you're doing it. So we had the format of ACS, where the first day would be, we call it threat hunting. You log onto your environment, you get to navigate around, reconnaissance, and identify things that you think are possibly wrong. That, oh, I've noticed there's a spare password, there's the wrong permissions here, I would change that. Then we reset the range. So people can change it to practice that they know how to harden it or protect it. Then after that day, we reset it, and then they can submit their intelligence report to go, here's what I found. Then the next day, the exercise starts, and the red team will then start to attack you slowly. They'll do it slowly, and the yellow team, the scenario writers, will keep adding intelligence or cyber threat intelligence, news feeds, if you'd like, social media feeds, to help encourage the user where to focus their efforts. Right, I should look at this or that. Then the blue team defenders respond accordingly wherever possible. And just as a bit of fun to see how we can identify the final bit of talent, on the last day, we almost switched it around, where the blue team defenders then have the opportunity to try to attack back to the red team to see, can I get my intelligence back? What has been found? The trick there is, how do you do a bit of reconnaissance without breaking laws? Do you understand where to stop and start and not get in the fog of war? How do you know where to stop and start and comply with your organization, your nation, and international law, etc.?
Yeah, that's very nice breakdown of all the different teams. But that brings me to the next question, actually. So you mentioned all of these different teams that are participating, and obviously all of them have their own objectives, and they know what to do throughout the exercise. But how important it is to have smooth communication between those teams, and how do you, as an organizer, ensure that smooth communication between them?
So it's key, as you say, because it's all about the learning opportunity. For the sake of Army Cyber Spartan, is the range can be used for other things, modeling, real world, practicing different techniques. But because it's all about the learner, the blue team learner, there is a lot of collaboration behind the scenes on other channels, messaging channels and meetings, to make sure that the flow is right and that everybody understands what's going on. By the scoring bot that's built into the range, the ISA scoring bot, you're able to analyze performance metrics and reaction times. So I mentioned earlier that the yellow team have scenarios and intelligence drops. What we might do, and we do for the sake of Cyber Spartan, is we might have some intelligence, like we've heard that this may be happening. The aggressors, the attackers, seem to be exploiting some vulnerability, maybe Log4j. And that gives the blue teams hopefully a bit of a chance to understand that I should maybe look to see if I've got Log4j installed. You might have found that during the threat hunting time or not yet. We will wait and we'll be able to see with the scoring board who's patched that, who's reacted to it, because everything is pre-configured to detect the differences between the start state. So then if the red team, based on their play during the week, then attack the blue team and they exploit the Log4j vulnerability and they, God knows, steal some database passwords.
Yeah.
If the blue team have not yet responded or identified that this has happened, what we'll then do is use different social media metrics on fake Facebook or similar. Oh, we've just found this of the aggressor. And that, as a learning point, then gives the blue teams the opportunity to go, oh, I think that's happened to us. Let's now analyze, because you'll be able to time date stamp between when you were warned about it and when it's taken place, to be able to then further analyze it and dig into it later on. So it's very important that all this supporting team, so your red, green, white, yellow, synchronize everything that they're doing and don't get carried away, because it is pretty much a big theatre production. Everybody's working behind the scenes to make sure the audience, in this case the blue team, have the best experience going.
Totally, yeah, 100%. And before you mentioned that, I mean, obviously, it's very important to measure success when putting this much resources and efforts to organize this type of cybersecurity exercise. So, can you walk us through that? Like, how can you measure success of this kind of, in this case, Army Cyber Spartan 23 cybersecurity exercise?
So to start off with, as I say, prior to ACS, we understand what are the objectives, what are the measures of success. Then using either standard frameworks, like say the NIST cybersecurity framework is a good one, because it'll break down all the separate things that you should be able to watch. You can then go on maybe the OWASP website and go, what are the top vulnerabilities right now? What should we take care of? How do we stitch that into this scenario? So then when we know what we're planting, pre-planting without the competitors knowing, we then know, well, what would a good patch look like? What would a good response be? And it may be that some teams are on their learning journey. They're not yet professionals in cyberspace. They're learning, and as I say, they're equally welcome. So possibly they might have the knowledge to be able to identify something that's happened, but not yet to stop it or revert it. So an example may be, I've noticed that my desktop on my computer now says I've been compromised. I saw it happen. I can report it. I've identified it. I can tell you what I would do. I would revert it. I would check the logs. I would do some sort of reverse engineering, but I don't know how to. That doesn't mean you fail. That means at that skill level, at that point in time, you've achieved what you can achieve. However, a different team may be slightly more competent. They may be able to go, and here's what I would do. Well, you would arguably get more points, and if you could fix it altogether, you're very good. But a poor way of putting it is a bit like the Le Mans 24-hour race. There's different categories of cars on there. The Ferraris against the Fords are not in the same league, but they take part in the same event. They're measured against their peers at that appropriate level. So there are different levels of success, but ultimately, we use the scoreboard as a bit of fun. But as long as everybody walks away feeling a bit better, a little bit more competent and confident, then we've achieved our objectives. Because within my organization, as almost a SOC team, how do we keep the organization safe? If you upskill the masses, if everybody's a little bit better, it makes your job a lot easier, because there's a lot less risk that the simple sort of cyber attacks like God knows, spear phishing or anything like that will get through because people will be more aware. They will see what happens. They'll see the compromise of it, see the effect.
Totally, yeah, 100%. Yeah, before I move on to the next question, I'd like to remind the audience that you can type your questions if you have any to Daz, and we will make sure to address them in the end of this webinar session. But now to move on with our conversation, I'm very interested to know what were the biggest benefits of Army Cyber Spartan 23 for the participants, like for the people who, these people all over the world, they took time to participate in this 5-day long cybersecurity exercise. So what were the actual benefits that they got out of this activity?
So the benefits are huge and varied from both the competitors, the engineers that the host provide it, and pretty much everybody that touches it for different reasons. So from a participant point of view, and if you take ACS will take your place either way, and it costs whatever it costs. So the money is not a factor. It happened. If you're a participant and my organization is trying to upskill the masses and identify the next cyber specialist, maybe the next SOC analyst, the next whatever, DevSecOps engineers, you need to be able to actually measure people against tradecraft and skillcraft and not just a CV, a list of qualifications, etc. So it may be that the participants enter because they're all volunteers, take part and go, did you enjoy it?
Yeah.
And you may find that you attempt it, you think you will like it, you don't. You think you like gin, you try gin, you don't like gin. That's equally beneficial to go, we won't focus our efforts as an organization training people that aren't passionate about it, it's not their interest. That narrows down for our objectives, who do we focus on going forward? It may then find the other people, as I say, on the start of their journey, with little knowledge but a lot of interest. I'm very interested, very enthusiastic, I just don't have the ability yet. They take part in it and they go, I really enjoyed it. The world burned around me, it all went wrong, but I learned so much by seeing what a bad day looks like. Because you can't practice that in the real world or in work because your operational equipment can't be used in the same context. So that's why the Cyber Range or Cyber Spartan is a good safe to fail environment. So you may go, I like this, I don't know how it was done, I want to take part in it. Whether that be as a participant again next year, so coming up November this year, and go, that's great, let's do it again. At least you won't catch me out the same way. I've gone away, I've learned, I'm a bit better. And now the next guy that comes along, maybe he'll be developed, he'll be where you were year one, now you're year two, you're better, you're moving on as an organization, which upskills everybody. Or you might find that you go, yeah, blue team was fun, but I want to know how the red team, how the attackers did their thing, how's the automation done, how was the engineering done? And that grows skills for us in turn and go, well, perfect, moving on. It also, as I said, is the first opportunity that you can test the dynamics of a team. So it's easier to say within an organization, you might assume the person that's oldest is the senior leader or the person that thinks he's the best senior leader. But when you face uncertainty, it's not a sterile condition, you've been attacked, you weren't expecting it, how do you respond? You might find you get different natural leaders come out of it. And you may find that the youngest people are more comfortable with the risk because they're more comfortable with the technology. So everybody benefits out of it, whether it be a technical observation or achievement or something more culturally you understand a bit more. So hopefully everybody gets something out of it.
Yeah, that sounds like a win-win situation for everyone, right? These many participants. Nice. And now let's talk about more of like a partnership point of view, because I think it's very important in this case to and big responsibility too for the partner to choose right organizations to do this type of exercise with. So walk us through that. Like, why is it important to have an expert while on the spot, while conducting the exercise of this scale?
So it's always hard to venture into unknown space, and you will often find if you try it by yourself, you'll be narrow-minded, tunnel vision, because you'll do things your way because you don't know what you don't know. And people will be very risk adverse. I don't want to take a risk because if it goes wrong, either I will look bad, the team will look bad, it'll be bad for morale, bad for. However, the good thing about risk in the right environment is either an opportunity or a threat. It's a
Mm.
threat if you don't control it. It's an
Yeah.
opportunity if you know how to use it.
Like,
By partnering with people like CybExer, who have a wealth of experience building cyber ranges, agnostic of what your requirement is, we come along as a customer, go into the, as I said, the chef in the kitchen. I would like something that looks like this. I want to achieve these objectives. I want that. Then using their experience as a liaison partnership, they can say, if you tell me you want this, you tell me you want eggs, I can tell you I can either fry them, boil them. What do you want with them? But, oh, great. So now I can make sure that what is being provided by the supplier, CybExer, matches my actual objectives. Because they were already pre-agreed, I can tick, tick, tick. I've got all these things crossed off. So because they will then create the environment or support the creation of the environment in the virtual world, whether it be on-prem or in a cloud, as I said earlier, that de-risks me trying something with real hardware or the real networks in my organization, because if we break them, it'll cost a lot of money. It's very hard to reconfigure, to fix, and you might not have spare capacity. Because when you think Army Cyber Spartan had round about 3,500 machines deployed, if you laid that out in the ground in the car park, it's a big old area, and it'd be very hard to reconfigure or fix that. So
totally.
it, it it became very, very cost effective by having CybExer on that. Although you pay for the service, you're paying to not fail as well. And where our skills ended and CybExer started, it means that we can push our boundaries. We can push ourselves as the client and go, I think this is as far as I can get without calling in your help. If I think I can do something, it turns out I can't. CybExer can pick me up when I fell. They can carry on and make sure overall it's a success. But also, my day job is not building cyber ranges for my organization. I
Yeah.
have other work as well. So it may be at the start of the journey, I've got all these objectives, I'm planning everything, everything's great, but then my resources get taken away. The people, the time, suddenly I need more help. And CybEx is stepping in and do that for me. So that way it becomes very resource effective in terms of cost and time and skill. From an organization point of view as well, by having or by partnering with CybExer, it's not we're the supplier, you're the customer. It's very much you can watch us, you can be embedded with the team, see exactly how it's done, and if you were good enough, you can take our knowledge that we've given you, and you don't need us in future. So it's not as if it serves that you're being relied on forevermore. It's an offering. There you go. We'll tell you everything you need. You can do this yourself. They give you the confidence to be able to move on. However, you also understand you will never learn as much as the Master Jedi. So you always need to, I've got more questions, and a lot of support, whether it be support from the writing week to understand what it looks like, but also for Army Cyber Spartan, we also had engineering days where we'd get the visitors come down and CybExer would explain how does it all work behind the scenes. There's no secrets. It's just a lot of clever people applying specialist skills in certain areas. And that's where I think the partnership is very, very good. In terms of moving forward as an organization, what this partnership's also done is it said, right, here is Cyber Spartan. It's huge, it's great, it's complex. But now lots of people that took part in there have now organically come up with their own questions. Can we do that with it? Can we add this? Can we? Yes. Because CybExer delivered Cyber Spartan, my organization owns the code. I can reload it whenever I like. I can enhance it whenever I like at zero cost because it's mine, as long as it's on-prem with me. But if I want big changes, I don't have the skills for that. I need consultancy of CybExer who will just top it up and keep us fresh, keep us relevant, because that's the key thing. By the time we've learned the skills that CybExer built up over years and years, if we think we learned the skills, we can't learn the skill at the rate of relevance. And an organization wants to be ahead of their competitors, their peers. So we're using them as almost an academic center of excellence and skills excellence to help us move on. And the partnership is key.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree with you on that. And yeah, my final question, and how I would like to wrap up this session is tell us about the outcomes of Army Cyber Spartan 23 cybersecurity exercise. I mean, it happened, last year. It's been a couple of months after that. So, what were the outcomes from this activity?
So the outcomes in terms of, let's say, lots of people are now better trained, they're better formed within our organization. They now know how to pursue a career in cyber or DevSecOps, whatever you'd like to call it. They now know what the journey may look like. They've had exposure and transparency to see all the separate functional areas that make up this cyber exercise and go, oh, that attracts me, that does not. Now I know where to focus myself. It gives an organization benefit because you know the baseline metrics, how good are the participants, not in a shame or praise way, it's just a measure of current organization ability. How will they be next year? How can we shape it? Where's our growth areas? What areas do we excel in? But also, as I said, the key thing for us, between the Cyber Spartans, there's a lot of interest now in using the same platform. What else can we do with it? Let's try it. So let's fail, because the edge of brilliance is the edge of chaos, and at least we can push our boundaries in a safe to fail environment to see where we come up short, and then learn what went wrong, what went well. So after ACS took place, what we did, because as I said, different people in different parts of their journey, learning knowledge, skills, abilities, tasks, etc. Sometimes the attack campaign, the pace of the exercise is a bit too fast for some people. Quite right. It's all fitted into 1 week. And you go, oh, I saw what you did then, but I was doing it, but never had time. You took me down. I was dead. And then moved on. It took me down. I was dead. So what we did for the first time this year with ACS 23 was at the last day of the exercise, we reset the range back to day one. The whole environment went back. The teams then had a further month, zero cost because it's ours on-prem, without the red team attacking them, nothing going on, just try to patch it yourself, try to fix it. You did the threat hunting, you saw the effects that happened, you saw the impact of what happened. Now maybe with time and without people bothering you, you can learn Google, YouTube, other things, LinkedIn Learning, other stuff, help you understand how you could have done a bit better. And you can work either by yourself or as a team in the environment, re-harden your network. Then 1 month after, so for us it was after Christmas, the people who'd been learning the red team effects of CybExer and how to use the tools and the automation and all the manual stuff as well, they then also had their playbook on how do you do it step by step. So it gave the red team a chance to go, now I've got time, no pressure. I'm going to work through the same attack campaign and take these teams down. Then what we then had was the delta. What red team attacks failed and what passed. So then you can give that to the blue team, the participants, and say, during the exercise, you achieved maybe 10 out of 40 objectives.
Yeah.
But now you've actually hardened 30 out of 40. The red team could not get in using the same techniques. So now you've shown that over time, the extra benefit of keep the range back up without being attacked is that actually you've further developed your skills. So now maybe you'd be a bit more comfortable if you learn a bit more pace, that next ACS, if you want to attend, then at least you'll have a bit of a better understanding of how you're going to achieve it.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting too. So yeah, finally, I would really like to thank you very much for sharing all these insightful stories about Army Cyber Spartan 23. I think it was very interesting. I would also like to thank everybody from the live audience for attending this session. I think we have a question. So yeah, one of the webinar participants wants to know what has been the biggest obstacles that you had to overcome throughout this exercise?
To be honest, it was probably more cultural because when you run such a large scale event, there's lots of it costs money, and the bigger the scale, the bigger the cost to a certain extent. And its infrastructure is code, so it's a lot cheaper at scale. But there's why? Why do you do it? So it's more the internal marketing and media. You do this because that's actually your job. We're helping you get better at your job, and taking away the theory that it's like Call of Duty in the cyber world. It's not. It's not fun. It's upskilling in a context that represents your organization. And it could be a digital twin exact copy, or it could be simulate it's just Windows. And the reason why we intentionally keep it just Windows, just Linux or SCADA, etc., is so that people could also do it at home if they so wish. It's not an exact copy which is classified, etc. And so that was the biggest thing. As soon as you get your key reps of the color, so your red, green, blue, yellow, and white, then you can have the grown-up conversations as an organization. Go, how do I change the goal? How do I help support it? Once you have that lined up and you understand where it fits, then everything's plain sailing.
Great. We have another question coming from Phil. So he would like to know, well, you talked about the evolution from full CybExer support to Army being able to deliver an ACS with very minimal CybExer support. So, yeah, how long will that process take, roughly?
So without talking too much about the military context, when you understand the abstraction layers of how the cyber range works, it's very logical, it's just very complex. It's not chaotic, it's just very clever the way all technology works. So to get an understanding of how it works takes a bit of time to get your head into it as well, certainly if it's not your native background. So the plan for this Cyber Spartan is with CybExer for the next 3 years or 2 more. And that was intentional because the plan is in 3 years' time or 2 years' time, in a perfect world, we won't need CybExer because the organization will have that much knowledge transfer, that much transparency, that where they're heavily reliant on CybExer on year 1, by the time they get to year 3, they'll be able to do it all themselves and require less and less support. So arguably, go, well, that's perfect. In reality, what we've found so far is that 3-year migration is probably not enough, but that's more from an organization. We don't have a dedicated team to maintain the cyber range or to learn this as a focused job. People get moved around, and that's an organizational issue. If we have people in here full time and that's all they did, that's hard to tell, but probably not as long as you think. But I think you would always need the partnership with CybExer to a certain extent because of they're not just seeing my organization, they're seeing every organization they support around the world. So what's everybody else doing that's helping develop them, make them better? Certainly as things move on, because behind the scenes on the cyber range now, there's AI integration to help the user make their own code base. And that's very good if you know what a code base looks like. So it's different stepping stones for different people. So if you had a few people, call it maybe 3 or 4 dedicated people within the organization to maintain and use the cyber range, then I think, you know what, in time, a lot of the internal dev work, test work, experimental stuff, you can do yourself. I think it's just the scale and the complexity when you do such a big event that you would go, yeah, we maybe need CybExer support at varying levels. The key thing is they de-risk right now with our organization, they de-risk where we come up short, CybExer can step in. So the overall event that's so big can't fail and won't fail because there's always specialists there.
Exactly. Yeah, I absolutely agree that scale is an important factor when you taking this into consideration. But once again, yeah,
Sorry, just one more thing to add on that point, Phil. Every time we make code, so we make it for ACS 23, ACS 24 this year, it stays on our local server, so it's owned by the client. It's not owned by CybExer. So in theory, we can respin it up every day of the week, zero cost forevermore. Try to refresh it yourself, and once again, it won't cost anything other than your time and your understanding. It's just when you need the more the consultancy help to help you take to the next level and evolve faster than you could probably do without a lot of experience at this point in time.
absolutely, yes. But yeah, once again, thank you very much for taking time and sharing these insights with us from your experience from ACS 23. Once again, thank you very much, everyone who participated in this session and asking these insightful questions to make this interview even more interesting. If you'd like to learn more about what we do and cyber ranges and cyber preparedness, make sure to go to our website. We have lots of useful resources there. Also, make sure to follow us on LinkedIn, where we put these updates about our team every single week. And yeah, don't forget to subscribe our channel on YouTube to see content like this. Thank you very much, and see you on the next webinar. Goodbye.
Take care. Thank you.